He joins us right now on the program from Big 12 Media Days. Mark Harlan, athletic director for the University of Utah. Mark, we missed you here in person, man, but thanks for joining the program.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I heard PK was going to be there, and I was like, I got other things I can get done up here, so I thought I'd call in.
I love it.
Is that fair?
He avoided PK.
That was nice of you to.
Oh, am I talking to Whittingham here? What is it?
Whit did just harass PK for the last few minutes.
Mark, I was going to take you out to the finest steakhouse tonight, man. It was going to be on me.
Oh, wow.
For the first time.
I didn't know, but I did do you guys a favor. I was driving to a meeting, and I could tell that you guys are getting a little annoyed by my guy's swoop, so I did send a text.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
My favorite thing was that Hans got a lap dance from Swoop at
Mark.
Big 12 Media Days. It
was rough.
It was my favorite thing that happened.
I'm going to hold to this. I really do think that Devin Dampierre's brother was in that Swoop costume, running as the hype man.
Oh, that was amazing.
I thought, you know what? There's many things the AD has to do, but I pulled over and sent a quick text. So did he fly away?
He
or is
did.
he still in your grill?
I was going to say, I thought that maybe you had sent the text to go over. Here's what Hans looks like. Let's go get him.
Go find him.
Mark, we were just having a conversation because yesterday we chatted with Brian Santiago, and he said, you know what, and we asked him about the relationship that he's already had with you and just trying to kind of get into that role down at BYU, and he said, you know what, one of the first people who, when I got off the plane in Orlando for those business meetings, was Mark Harlan, and he put his arm around me, and we chatted about, some of the things, and he just talked about the hospitality of it. How important is that to you to make sure that, all the ADs seem to have a pretty good relationship, but obviously a new one comes into the fold, even if it's down at the team down south, you're gonna put your arm around him and say, hey man, welcome to the club.
Yeah, no, he's a really good man. I got great appreciation for somebody that started where he did in that organization and just grinded and worked his way up. And these are tough jobs, but they're tough in the job he's had too. So I've got great appreciation for him. And Tom had always told me how Brian was such an important part of the organization. It's kind of like Charmel Green is here in my senior group. So, yeah, Brian and I really got a chance to steal away and just talk about a lot of different things. And, he joked about how different the chair is and how it already feels. And, we talked a little bit about that. But, the secret is, and you guys know, like Tom and I would talk all the time about stuff, and it's going to be the same way with Brian because we got issues we got to solve together. We compete and we compete in the living rooms as we joke around, and we compete on the fields and courts. But everything else, we're kind of aligned in the things that need to happen. There's a lot of legislative issues that he and I went and saw a bunch of legislators on the Hill. Tom and I were just in before he retired. We were just in D.C. together, meeting with the senators. I mean, that stuff's really important, and I think both of us being really good is important on the field, and doesn't mean we won't want to get after them, just like they want to get after us. But we work a lot, so maybe the secret's out now, right?
Mark, I'm curious because we had Kyle Whittingham, and he was just sitting in the chair a little bit ago, and we were talking back and forth about his years in the business, and he was talking about hiring Coach Beck, and he said, I brought in Morgan Scally because he's coaching waiting. I felt like he was owed that. I want to go back to the contract negotiations with Morgan Scally and the decisions by you and Kyle and that front office to issue him the coach in waiting. Kind of walk us through that process and what that meant to you and what that meant to Morgan in that time.
Yeah, well, I just, this whole thing that we do is all about people that are talented and people that care about young people, whether they're coaching or whether they're administrator, right? I mean, that's the thing. And so when you have somebody of the talents of Morgan, you gotta make sure that you do everything you can to keep that person in place and continue to provide the value to the organization. It's pretty simple. Leadership 101 about surrounding everybody with the best you can. So really, two things came to mind, and they were all based on the fact that I knew how good Morgan was. Remember, this is my 9th season coming up. I've been around Morgan for a long time,
crazy.
and I Whit and I had talked about it off and on the first 3 or 4 years I was here. Fast forward, listen, the guy gets calls, right? Let's just be candid. I mean, He's the best defensive coordinator in the country, time and time again. So he's getting calls. And so it made sense for us to really think about the future with Morgan, and that's where we really started diving into it. Coaching waiting comes with good and bad and everything in between, and I recognize that. Bad because, things can get weird at any different time, but I knew Morgan would be able to handle any of that. So, it's just made a lot of sense for us. The second thing, it's really helped us, and we really have noticed this in this recruiting class. This is coming together to be one of our better classes we've had in a while. That comes up, and for a parent to see who's next, whenever next is a real asset to the organization. And we've really seen that over these last couple of recruiting cycles. So anyway, it just made a lot of sense. And it's nice in this world of instability. It's nice to have that kind of stability as we move forward.
We had the House settlement, and I know you guys, University of Utah's all in with the $20.5 million, but you also got the NIL with this other commission that you're going to have to run stuff through. Stories are starting to come out now with Texas Tech, with their big money, giving guys 3-year deals and all that stuff, and you're like, well, what's going on here? There's a lot of confusion, so I'm going to ask you a question. How much clarity do you have about the whole situation? Because it seems like it's all over the map.
I would say I put it in two categories. What is clarity for me and the organization is certainly the cap. That's a big deal. Don't want to underestimate that. The fact that everybody can spend 20.5. If you go over, there's $7 million+ penalties. This is a federal settlement. This isn't just some negotiating in a back room. This is a federal signed by a federal judge settlement. So excited about that. Excited that payroll, if you want to call it that, began here last Tuesday. And we're settling into that, and that's a big change. That's helpful. In terms of NIL, listen, I think that the NIL Go program is very interesting. We've been on it now for a month. Our athletes submit their deals. They get rejected or they don't. Most of them have been accepted. That's a range of compensation. It's a very slick system, very easy, and all that's great. The thing that's not totally clear is how is compliance going to be handled. I like the structure of it in terms of the new president. I think he's really talented. I think he's surrounding himself with a great team. But until they go after somebody that's blatantly cheating, i.e. not submitting their NIL deals or promising a junior in high school these things, all the things that are going on, the coaches are going to continue to be, and as such the athletic director is very suspect that we did all this work when there's not compliance. So until someone is nailed and proven and that coach is suspended and that kid is taken off the field or, whatever might happen, the coaches are going to just be shaking their heads. So I'm hopeful. This is outside the NCAA. They have subpoena power. There's more teeth than I've seen, but we got to see it happen.
Yeah. Mark, we've been talking a lot about scheduling, a ton about scheduling, and I know you got UCLA out of the gates, and we talked to Brett Yormark about scheduling and the importance it plays for this conference and stability. And it feels like the scheduling in football is changing more towards the kind of legislature of the scheduling in basketball, where you schedule the big names, and if you lose, it's not as painful as maybe having a lesser name and struggling a little bit, maybe losing and falling completely off the face of the earth. What is your philosophy right now moving forward? And I know it's UCLA out of the gates, and that's a great game, and fans are excited about it. And we've watched some of the openings through Pac-12 where it was Michigan or Florida, and it's been good stuff through the University of Utah. But what is your philosophy, and how much do you want to try to flex with the SEC or Big Ten scheduling in the future?
Well, I think it's going to come down to a lot to where is the CFP going to fall? If we get to 16, we get to a 5-11 format, then you're definitely going to have more space to operate and be able to get in there. We already have one AQ, set up in the system. So, if that doesn't expand, then you're really going to have to be careful because, you can overschedule. There's no question. You got to be careful on that. But don't know if you guys are aware, but within the Big 12, there is you have to have that 10th game has to be, a Power 4 school. So that's contractually in there. we're always look at our schedule ahead. We've got Arkansas coming in. We got LSU on the schedule. We got Wisconsin on the schedule. I think that's really important for our fan base. It's important for our program. But a big part of your question is going to be answered for all of us if this thing moves to 16, because then you could start thinking about that 11th game maybe even being right. Another big game. But we'll wait and see where that goes.
Part of it has to do with how much teams get penalized for losses in football versus basketball, where you're encouraged to make these big time rolls of the dice on other opponents, and you're not dinged as hardcore. Obviously there's a lot more games, but yeah, 16 team playoff, that's going to add to it. Brett Yormark brought up the strength of places like Utah and how additive you guys have been to this conference. And when you look at what, I can't believe it's year 9, by the way, that you're going into this thing. It's crazy. But as you see this thing going, how much has this program grown in this last few years, and obviously getting into the Big 12, and how much more growth do you think can happen in the short term here for this Utah program?
Well, listen, our ceiling continues to be very high, and we've just established such credibility. The brand has grown. You don't go to back-to-back Rose Bowls and back-to-back championships without the whole nation knowing. Obviously last year was a difficult year. It happens in sports. The way we're investing, the way Kyle's been able to keep this staff together and make hard changes when he's needed to. We're selling out again. We sold out again season tickets. We got the infrastructure here to be great. And, the fact that we were able to retain our great players, you don't retain everybody. No one retains everybody. Texas Tech didn't retain everybody, right? That's just the way it is. And, continuing to move forward. The GM position that we've seen in basketball is also really getting up to speed in football with Kyle's staffing structure. So, we're continuing to move forward. And I think, obviously, when I went in front of the football team in January and there was 47 new guys. Now, mind you, the year before there was like 17, right? And I think the way our staff is adapting to integrate these guys in a fast way and build a team, which has been a little different for Utah, right? It really has. But I've seen how far they've come. And I just think that now we're kind of in a place where we're really ready to start thriving once again in this environment. So excited about what Coach has done and that staff, and certainly know that we got a real exciting year ahead.
Mark, no Arizona on the schedule. No Arizona on the schedule this year, and we got to make this quick. Why not?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why not play the 4 corner schools every single year in this Big 12?
Yeah, I'll be quick on this. The 4 ADs asked for as much as we could to do that. So basically, we're always going to have at least 3 of them on the schedule on every year. More of that would have really thrown out of balance for everybody else. But if you look at it on most years ahead, this is the year we miss Arizona. But on most years we'll have them. Obviously, with us playing BYU every year, so it's way more intentional than just missing one. As long as we're getting 75% of that group, because it's good for our fans, good for travel, etc.
Yeah. Mark Harlan, athletic director for the University of Utah, nice enough to carve out some time in his busy schedule. We miss you being here in person, Mark, but we're glad to have you on. Thanks for carving out some time in your schedule.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
There you go.